Good morning, everybody, and a happy Saturday morning to you. Well, I always tell you there are long videos, and then there are long videos. Here you go. My goodness. We are covering not only the royal family, not only the Nigerian state visit, but what happened in the Variety Fair article, which is the Hollywood Bible. So let's just buckle down and get busy, shall we? All right, let's go. We're going to start off with Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. She officially opened the new Student Learning Center at the Royal Veterinary College at its Hawkshead campus. It's there to enhance teaching, learning, and research. It's a new 3-story facility, which includes new research and student laboratories, a 400-seat lecture theater, and social learning areas. And on March 18th, the Princess Royal inspected the combined cadet force at Bedford School, which represents 4 local schools. She reviewed the cadets from Bedford School, Bedford's Girls' School, Bedford's Modern School, and Bedford's Green Acres, observing their drill and speaking with them about their training and skills. Next up, March 17th, the President of Nigeria and the First Lady arrived in London. They were picked up in the car and they were taken to their hotel for the night. And then the next day, they were met by William and Catherine. They were pictured meeting the Nigerian President and the First Lady. Now, they're starting the beginning of their state visit to the UK. They're at the luxury spa hotel, the Fairmont Windsor Park, just on the edges of the Great Windsor Park. So the pair escorted them to the town center, then to formally meet the King and Queen. This is Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his wife, Olurimi Tinubu, and this is the first state visit to Britain by a leader of the West African nation in 37 years. And it's also the first by a Muslim leader during Ramadan in almost a century. Because of this, organizers have had to modify the program to accommodate these religious requirements, meaning the customary welcome lunch at the castle has been removed from the proceedings. So instead, the king will receive President Tinubu for an afternoon audience at Windsor Castle. But first, they were taken to, I guess you would call it the quadrangle, to meet Camilla and Charles. I couldn't help but notice, of course, Catherine. She waited until King Charles was looking at her so that he could see her before she bobbed her first curtsy. And then when she went over to greet Camilla, she bobbed a curtsy for Camilla as well. So this was absolutely a ceremonial welcome on March 18th, in case I didn't say it. Now, upon their arrival to Windsor Castle, the President and the First Lady were received by the King and Queen, and then there was a full ceremonial welcome, including a 42-gun salute fired by the King's Troop Horse Artillery. And then President Tinubu and King Charles inspected the traditional military guard at the castle. Now, I couldn't help but notice that Charles was wearing a top hat and he took it off at one point. I absolutely love that. Now, the visit aims to strengthen diplomatic ties, enhance the Nigerian-UK strategic partnership, and explore new investment opportunities. I can't help but wonder how Harry and Meghan are going to spin this since she was made, an honorary daughter of Nigeria or whatever. Of course, we had the carriage procession, and King Charles and Mr. Tinubu were on the Australian state coach. The First Lady of Nigeria joined Queen Camilla in a separate procession on the Scottish state coach. Now, they're saying that this marked a moment of shared tradition and enduring ties between both nations. Catherine and William were in the last coach. I cannot tell you, it's so dark, you'll see as they go by. I can't even tell you who's in there with them, but definitely they were with somebody in this coach as they went by. And then after that, it was time to walk into the castle. And just like when they came down the steps, I noticed that the king and the president were holding hands. I guess they were trying to steady each other. Well, that's what I thought anyway, but then articles came out saying that actually in Nigeria, it's normal for men walking side by side to hold hands. Now, everybody's talking about the Princess of Wales and what she wore. This was a piece from Tolu Coker, who is a British Nigerian fashion insider favorite and a cult young London designer. So this outfit, I think it was very significant that she chose to wear this outfit because she usually relies on Alexander McQueen or Catherine Walker. And instead, she used a Nigerian designer. I love it. I also found out that this woman is an early beneficiary of the Princess Trust. That was back in 2018. Now, you have to know that when they were done with that, the Prince and Princess of Wales joined the King and other members of the royal family to view a special exhibition of Nigerian-related items from the royal collection in the Green Drawing Room at Windsor Castle. The display featured historic artifacts and artworks that emphasize the long-standing relationship between Nigeria and the UK. There is a Yoruba throne, which is a beaded throne that was gifted to Queen Elizabeth II during her 1956 visit to Nigeria. It was intricately stitched with thousands of small colored beads. Then you had the Ben Okri manuscript. It's a work by Nigerian-born British poet and novelist, the first Black writer to win the Booker Prize. There were historic photographs, a selection of images documenting past interactions between the British royal family and Nigeria. And during this portion, of course, the Princess of Wales discussed her personal interest in photography. Catherine, as usual, looks absolutely fabulous. Look at that hair. A big thank you to Remoulade Sauce and to my moderator, Carol, for showing us what Catherine was wearing during this part of the day. Let's continue. Now, as I mentioned earlier, as the day went on, the King received the President for an audience at Windsor Castle. And as you can see from the photos, the wives were there as well. And as I mentioned to you guys before, the King is he looks good, but he looks very, very pale and wan. Now, when that meeting was over, the King and the President, joined by the First Lady, went to Vickers Hall, where they met organizations who work in interfaith dialogue nationally and internationally. Let me help you out a little here, People Magazine. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had her tiara moment, her first tiara appearance of 2026. We know there were 3 of them in 2025, so this is her first royal headpiece of the year. And I love her green dress, and it's for the Nigerian state visit. Now, of course, you see all the family coming out together. You had the Princess of Wales joined by Prince William. They were helping King Charles and Queen Camilla host the Nigerian president and First Lady at their state visit. Also, of course, you see Princess Anne, Sir Tim Lawrence, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, and you see Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh. What you don't see, or who you don't see, is Sophie, who was out about and unavailable for this get-together. Then, of course, they paired off with the different members of the families, and they all walked in to dinner. Now, for this occasion, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, again reached for her go-to royal headpiece, the Queen Mary's Lover's Knot Tiara. It's one of 5 that she's worn during her royal life. This accessory was also worn by Princess Diana. It was Diana's most popular option as well. Catherine wore the tiara twice in 2025 for the state banquets honoring President Trump and the French president's visits. The dress with the green color was an international nod to Nigeria's flag. The earrings were from the late Queen Elizabeth's collection. Her accessories also included King Charles's Royal Family Order, the badge, with his portrait on it, and the Royal Victorian Order and Star. Now, let me just say, again, this is soft diplomacy, and Catherine does it really well. Remember, when the German president was there last December, Catherine wore the Queen Victoria's Oriental Circlet Tiara, and it was also diplomatically made a tribute to the German guest because it was crafted in 1853 for Queen Victoria under the direction of her husband, Prince Albert, who came from Germany. Now, obviously, there were speeches made on both sides, but one of the things that President Tinubu said was, quote, "Our partnership is further strengthened through the Commonwealth of Nations, which connects 56 countries under your Majesty's leadership. Thank you very much for all you've been doing for us." And here's what everybody was wearing. Enjoy. Now, of course, on March 19th, Nigerian President Tinubu and the First Lady departed Windsor Castle following the historic two-day state visit. Now, they said goodbye, they shook hands, they stood for their pictures, and following their departure from the castle, President Tinubu is scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Keir Starmer at Downing Street. I don't know where the wife was going or if she was invited to that. All right, let's move on to our Harry and Meghan stuff. Meghan is using the children. I've told you before she was going to start merching those kids, and that's exactly what she's doing. So Meghan was in the backyard assembling some gardenias, and then she looks up off camera. Well, just watch this.
Are you having fun, my love? Archie. Yes, I think you can. Let's go.
This was so staged. You know how many times they probably had the kid do that just to make sure her face was perfectly covered by the flowers? And then it's staged because you see she's wearing that sweater, and then all of a sudden the little girl is still wearing the same dress, but now Meghan is in a white button-down shirt. So obviously this is staged with multiple outfit changes for Meghan, not the girl. The girl's hair still looked messy. There was stains on her dress. Yeah, no. Even in this picture, the girl is being told to hide her face with her hand. You never see the boy. I mean, this is so inauthentic. And she's using the children. It's terrible. And the reason you saw her cutting flowers is because she's unveiled a new 191-pound gift box through As Ever. You get flowers, tea, and honey. So it's a garden tea bloom box. It's $225, and it's some sort of a collaboration between Meghan's Stuff and High Camp Supply, which is a San Francisco-based florist. It's limited edition just for Easter. She's really pushing to get rid of this stuff. So if you read the stuff that comes with it, it says it's going to get there separately. Oh, by the way, that doesn't include the $35 in shipping. Now, at the same time, Meghan put up this video, which is essentially saying, look at me, look at my life. Isn't it wonderful? I'm carefree. I'm unbothered. Don't look over there. Look over here. You know, more distraction techniques. It's not working at all. Let's move on now to Variety. We know that this is Hollywood's Bible, and they've put out an article basically saying that after 5.5 years at Netflix, are Harry and Meghan on the outs with Netflix? That seems to be the question around Hollywood because Archwell Productions is struggling to release bingeable content. In 2020, they originally intended to produce scripted and unscripted films and series for all ages, but in the last 18 months, it's basically just become a way for Meghan to sell her As Ever products. And last week's news that Netflix divested from the lifestyle venture, which the tech giant footed the bill to help build, tossed gasoline on the bonfire of speculation about the health of the relationship between Harry, Meghan, and Netflix. Variety spoke to 6 well-placed individuals with knowledge of Netflix and the Sussexes, and they say that the union between Meghan, Harry, and the streamer has been very far from a fairy tale. The Sussexes' perceived pattern of selling repackaged versions of the same story about their exit from royal life has exhausted Netflix. Their partnership may continue to taper off, and with it will Harry and Meghan's remaining show business lifestyle. The mood in the building is we're done. Their bedside manner has ruffled feathers in meetings, and lackluster ratings for shows like With Love, Meghan have led to doubts that e-commerce is the best way for Netflix to stay in business with the two of them. That's to say nothing of Archewell's history of what sources are calling poor communication in their dealings with the company. There are 3 insiders who said Ted Sarandos is fed up with them, who, according to 2 sources, have been known to text directly to the CEO about their projects, as do many A-listers who work with the streamer. And similarly, Chief Content Officer Bella Bajaria is said to have grown weary of the Sussex Pact. You have to understand that articles are coming out saying that allegedly Ted Sarandos won't speak to Meghan Markle on the phone without a lawyer present. A lawyer has to be present on the line. Now, the source noted it was unclear when he said that if he was serious and joking. Of course, a Netflix spokesperson, when asked, says that's absolutely inaccurate and that Sarandos and Bajaria have not lost faith in the couple. Archewell has been a thoughtful and collaborative partner. Their statement, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, sounds like damage control to me. Insiders also say that Sarandos and his wife socialize frequently with Harry and Meghan and their neighbors in Montecito. Now, this is a blatant falsehood. In fact, Meghan texts and speaks with Mr. Sarandos regularly and has been to his home, said the lawyers, because the Sussex's attorney, Michael Kump, sent a letter to Variety about the story. So last August, after the second part of With Love, Meghan was released and it did really bad, it's being reported Netflix was sitting on a surplus of as-ever products, including tea and baking mixes totaling more than $10 million in value. So much for the company started giving inventory to employees for free. Apparently, they were putting the goods on card tables in various office buildings. Now, an Archewell spokesperson said giveaways from sample closets are standard practice at studios. A different Netflix source said the plan was always to spin As Ever back into Archewell's control and that the streamer only intended to assist in its launch. A spokesman for the Sussexes says that Meghan's With Love Meghan will continue as seasonal specials. But a lot of people that are very familiar with Netflix say that the disenchantment with Harry and Meghan is not a recent phenomenon. According to Variety, as soon as Harry and Meghan got to the U.S. in March of 2020, they had meetings with Disney, Apple, Warner Brothers, Discover, NBC, Universal, and they ended up with Netflix, who, of course, we know did the Harry and Meghan, show. And Netflix got signed because they said Sarandos was fiercely competitive and he swooped in and gave them that exclusive arrangement over the 5-year term, which while some people are saying the deal was $30 million to $100 million, it was actually worth about $60 million. But what Netflix didn't expect, according to a lot of sources, was that the interview with Oprah would happen. While Netflix didn't suggest that Harry and Meghan violated the terms of their agreement, which did allow them to engage in projects in other arenas and participate in interviews for other distribution outlets, many at Netflix were annoyed by the lack of communication. Apparently, Netflix only discovered at the last minute that they were sitting down with Oprah and were sharing intimate headlining, grabbing details of their lives. And a Sussex spokesman said it was false that Netflix was unaware of the interview. Regarding their deal and its exclusivity, Netflix and Archewell had legal counsel involved, they're claiming, to oversee the evolution of the deal, as is common practice for any deal changes in Hollywood. But remember, Netflix was still in the honeymoon phase, and so ultimately, their leadership did not interfere with the broadcast. So after the interview, there was a lot of chatter about a tell-all memoir from Harry. So Netflix approached Harry and Meghan to discuss how a potential book deal would impact the release of the docuseries. And sources say Meghan downplayed, telling Sarandos that any publication would be far in the future if it happened at all. And a spokesman for Meghan again calls this categorically untrue, that there was open communication with Netflix months before release to coordinate timing between the book and the series. And in the spring of 2021, sources are saying Netflix felt blindsided with the news that Penguin Random House was indeed publishing The Spare and had planned to do so while Netflix was rolling out Harry and Meghan. Now, two sources said that Sarandos was really angry to hear about this during a chance encounter with an executive from Penguin. Now, a Netflix insider says the CEO never met anyone at the publishing house regarding the book, and Penguin would formally announce the project in July of 2021, setting a late 2022 release. And Penguin Random House, by the way, they asked for a comment and they refused to comment. So Netflix acted immediately and had Harry and Meghan air in its entirety before the book hit the shelves. And sources say that Penguin shifted its release to January of 2023. As far as the actual Harry and Meghan series goes, we know they went through a series of directors until they ended up with Liz Garbus, and everything was fine until it came to the editing. Meghan asked Garbus to remove some of the elements, saying that some of the interviews and footage would be upsetting to the royal family, especially since Queen Elizabeth had just passed 2 months earlier, and the couple was observing a period of mourning. Now, Garbus was asked about this. She again declined to comment, but internally at Netflix, sources said the feeling among the executives was that the couple's true intention with the request was to ensure that Harry's upcoming memoir would have exclusive news and insight that would satisfy the publisher. Now, of course, a Netflix spokesperson said that that's not true, and two other sources with knowledge of the process says Netflix leadership encouraged Garbus to conduct one final interview with Harry and Meghan to ensure that events discussed in Harry's book would also be covered in the series. And Garbus and the couple were strongly advised to deliver Harry and Meghan in a way that maximized the value of the show, and they agreed. However, outside of Netflix, parts of the entertainment industry began to sour on Harry and Meghan. And one of the things that happened was Spotify, where they lost their deal, and Bill Simmons called them effing grifters. Now, the year before that, in a January 2022 episode, the guy says, "You live in effing Montecito, you just sell documentaries and podcasts, and nobody cares what you have to say about anything unless you talk about the royal family, and you just complain about them." A-list talent and directors didn't want to work with them. Perceptions were really shifting across the United States. You had people like United Talent Agency CEO Jerry Zimmer, who said, and I'm quoting, "Turns out Meghan Markle was not a great audio talent or necessarily any kind of talent. Just because you're famous doesn't make you good at something." Scripted projects like Pearl were scrapped. Development turnaround is common in Hollywood, but they had not produced a single scripted project in 6 years at Netflix. Now, Meghan signed with WME in April of 2023 in hopes of helping her profile in business. However, her primary focus was building as ever. Within 3 months of Meghan becoming a client, key members of the team assembled to represent her dropped off her account. And Netflix also stepped up to help define her post-Harry and Meghan at Archwell. Because when Ben Browning departed as production and creative head at Archwell in 2023, the streamers showed renewed vigor. And at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival, for instance, the new creative team at Archwell hit the ground with indications from Netflix that the company would prioritize spending on acquisitions for Archwell with the goal of building a substantive pipeline of projects for Harry and Meghan. Unfortunately, sales agents and filmmakers on the ground were not interested in any Archwell involvement. If you mentioned Archwell, they walked away. Now, this past year, the couple went to Sundance for the Girl Scouts documentary Cooking Queens, on which they were executive producers. And that documentary struggled to land a sale before Roadside Attractions bought it 2 months after it debuted. And news of the sale came as, Variety was going to press. But by March of 2025, it was clear that Netflix and Archwell had changed direction. Harry did Polo, the 5-part episode unscripted series, and it did not go well. So they decided it was time to test Meghan as an entrepreneur and a solo star. And of course, Sarandos came out and said, Meghan's underestimated and people are overly dismissive of her and Harry. And he also confirmed that Netflix was a passive partner in the As Ever brand, which he did say it was a big discovery model for them. Now, we all know that Meghan has long conveyed that Hollywood is her domain, and they're saying that in virtual and in-person meetings with partners, she would talk over or recast Harry's thoughts, sometimes while he's in mid-sentence. Now, of course, they say that that always happens right before she touches his arm or his leg. Meghan's lawyer, Kumpf, again, in his letter to Variety, said that this seems calculated to play into the misogynistic characterization of her bossing her husband around. And of course, Harry says that it's categorically false. Meghan also has an odd method of providing feedback, according to 3 sources. She's known to disappear for long periods during Zoom calls, and then later, Netflix teams, like the marketing department, would be informed that her absence was due to her being offended by something that was said by somebody. And again, Meghan's attorney says that, quote, Meghan works from home, is the mother of young children aged 4 and 6, and often encounters, as many parents who work from home do, children who enter the space unexpectedly during a meeting. Independent of being a parent who works from home, Meghan is also conscious of shielding her team from the distractions of children. Nearly all professionals can attest to needing to turn off the audio or camera during a virtual meeting at some point during many hours of virtual business calls. Are you kidding me? Her children are in school. She claims her children are out of the house in school during the day. The nanny's doing the drop-off and the pickup. Unless these meetings are all happening on the weekends, that is a lie. You know, it's being said that after the second batch of With Love Meghan episodes absolutely cratered, the writing was on the wall that Netflix was absolutely losing faith in these two. And while news of Netflix divestment in the brand hit only a few days ago, 2 sources are saying it's been in the works since last fall, because that's when Meghan hired an independent brand consultant and creative director who had worked with Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, signaling to several sources that Netflix had thrown the towel in on Meghan last year. Now, Archibald does have 2 scripted features in the works at Netflix, an adaptation of The Wedding Date, which we know, and Meet Me at the Lake. Now, they're saying a writer-director for that project will be announced in the coming days. And with regard to As Ever, Meghan has hinted she's exploring ways to deliver more bite-sized content, such as like 2-minute recipe clips. But after half a decade of inconsistent shows, strategic shifts, false starts, and a diminished hold on the popular imagination, are they really living the Hollywood dream that they imagined? I'm going to say no. Reminder, you guys, not only on Sunday morning will there be a video at 5:30, you have the live at 10 o'clock, okay? And I'll see you then. And then there's going to be more on this story, I swear to God. So you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.